Tonight should be a really fun night for questions. They should be submitted in the chat boxes of both platforms, so make sure you know where those are. We do handle questions on both Zoom and Facebook. On Zoom, we have Renee Turner monitoring for questions and posting. And on Facebook, we have Larry Hansen monitoring and posting on Facebook Live. Stick around for the after talk. It's posted on the Historical Tea and Dance Friends page, or it's in the registration email you got. And it will also be posted at the end of this talk in the chat boxes. So chat boxes are really important. There's also a lot of interesting information being posted there, so make sure you turn those up. I want to give a shout out, thank you, of course, to Karen Axelrod and friends for her concert every Tuesday live on Facebook. And if you guys missed today's, you need to watch it. It was pretty great. And
I did everything. And Paul Ross, you don't remember, but you and I were there at the end of the Pat Talbot years together, and Erna Lynn Bogue taking on the English. And then there, as Darlene said, I did everything: International, Scottish, Morris, and then moved to Rhode Island. And I got into calling in an interesting way. It's because I was on a Morris team teaching the beginners, and we had a really big band. And here's a historical note. Early 80s. In those days, the band had to share $100, for example, and the caller got $100. And this young band said, nope, we don't want to do it. We're going to build it from the ground up. And they came and asked me to be their caller based on my teaching of a Morris team. So my first gig was at my own series in Kingston, Rhode Island. But then I met my husband, Michael, at English American Week at Pine Woods, moved to Massachusetts and did English. And every week, Wednesday night at the Y with Helena Cornelius and Bare Necessities. Yes, I was very lucky, still am. And started a Morris team, did rapper. And that's how it happened. So I do want to clarify, especially for my good friend Colin Hume, who wrote me and said, really, you're an English dancer? And I said, caller, you're an English caller? And I said, Colin, I'm a Contra caller who teaches English, because I love doing it at dance weekends, and it's becoming more popular for Contra dancers to do it. But look where I live. I mean, I live on the East Coast. There are a lot of good callers here, and I'm happy to go and be a dancer and learn from them, so that when I go teach Contra dancers how to do English, I have a good baseline.
very cool. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, you are teaching English country dance to Contra dancers. You want to talk a little bit more about that now, or is that something that's going to come up later?
I think that would be better in the chat.
Okay, great. But it is pretty great that that is happening more and more, I believe you were saying. So yeah. All right. Well, let's be very quick. Moving into thing number 2. Music. Listen, characterize, appreciate.
Yeah, so I had a gift. Besides being asked to call and become a caller, I had another gift in the guise of the band Nightingale, Becky Tracy, Keith Murphy, and Jeremiah McLean. I was doing a dance weekend with them in Santa Barbara. This was way back, probably late 80s, early 90s. And I'll never forget, I asked Keith, I said, I would like a smooth tune. And I got this French-Canadian tune. And I'm thinking, that is not smooth. What is going on? And I thought, well, I'd better pay attention. And I looked, and you know what it was? He plays it smoothly. If you've ever watched Keith play, his hands are very close to the keyboard. And I thought, for him, it feels smooth. For the dancers, it doesn't. And here's an example. This was recorded live by me at a dance weekend in Coshocton, Ohio. This is Nightingale. Ignore that question, but I'm glad a lot of you jumped right in. Oh no, Lindsay, it's great. Own it. This is perfect. We're fine. You didn't see that. That was a dream. You're prepared. But I hope you were actually listening to the music. So did you hear what a strong downbeat that is? So as a dancer, that's what you want. So French Canadian is perfect for anything that you need really good phrasing for, has balances anywhere. You could do just about any kind of chunky dance to that and be totally happy. So what I ended up doing that weekend was writing down adjectives to describe Nightingale's tunes. Because their tunes are arranged so particularly, you have to be careful about which dance goes with which tune. And in fact, somebody came up to me at the end of that weekend and said, that was really great, but you didn't seem to be having a good time. You seemed to be working the whole time. And that's because I was writing things down, and afterwards I would ask Becky, what was the name of that tune? And I created a database, and I'll do that for any band that has very distinctive tunes that they like to play, because my job is to make sure those tunes match the dance. But I also have to be flexible, because I don't always want to ask for the same tune, but I can ask for the same kind of tune, something like Tuque Bleu, which is what they just played, and they'll understand that. But the key is it starts in the body when you're working with musicians. So we do have a real pop quiz for you right now. We're going to play some music. And in the chat box, what adjectives would you use as a dancer to describe what this music is? And you can also type in like any figures you would feel inspired to do.
Yep, just getting it loaded up. One moment.
Oh yeah, I saw some good answers going by there. So yeah, it could be anywhere from bluesy, groovy, right shoulder round, smooth. I could see doing a hey. I don't think I really want to go down the hall to that unless I'm desperate. But so that's the kind of thing when you listen to a tune, what does it make your body do? And if the band is having trouble understanding what you're asking for, you're working with an old time band, but you didn't really know that. And you say, could you play something kind of bluesy and groovy? And they look at you. Then start dancing the way you want that to go. And then they'd be like, oh, got it, thank you. And then ask them afterwards, what kind of tune was that? And take notes, have a good dialogue with them about how would you characterize that tune? Another good thing is if you have a band that you work with a lot, and you also know your dancers pretty well, what I love to do is come to the gig with a menu. And the menu does not say what the name of the dance is, it says what kind of tune I want. So number one, usually for me, is always happy opening reels, and then I might say B2 balance, so that they can know. And then I might get a little bit more specific. Number two, bluesy jig, like Bad Hair, which is what we just played by Lift Ticket, written by Rodney Miller. But I would say something like Bad Hair, so that they have an option. If they don't want to play Bad Hair, at least they have a reference and they can know what they can do. And of course, you got to be ready to throw that menu out the window, but communicate with the band and say, I'm getting hosed. We have a whole bunch of beginners and we have no room to dance. We are off the program. And it's great, the band will help you. Of course, another good question to ask is, do you have anything special you want to play? But here's the key thing. Oh, good, play it for me now. And sometimes that's happened where I've asked for a specific tune, a kind of tune, and the musician will come to me and say, we're not going to play that. We have this new tune we've written. And very quickly you can get them and say, oh, can you just play a little bit of it? And they play it and you realize, oh gosh, that won't fit. But keep it positive. Save that for the second half. And you know what you're going to do during the break? You're going to find a dance to put to that cool new tune that they've written, which leads you to appreciation. Show your band appreciation. I mean, it's really important that you make eye contact with them during the dance. Somebody's going to look up and see you smiling at some point. And pay attention. Sometimes, you know, if you've ever worked with Kate Barnes, there are a whole bunch of little musical jokes in there. It's really great to show that you got it. Laugh, make eye contact, because, you know, she's usually looking. And that's great. That becomes a great point of contact. And for me, another really important thing is I work with a lot of different bands. And sometimes I'm with a group of musicians who are newer to playing. And you're up there thinking, oh dear, and you've got your smile on your face, and you're thinking, what one positive thing can I say? And you come up with it, and you make sure you own it. And an easy one is, wow, you guys really enjoy playing together, don't you? It's totally true, and it gives them energy, and from there you can start to direct them a little bit, you know, and be more clear about what kind of tune you need. I need really good phrasing on this next one. What do you think you're going to play? And if you've been doing your homework and you have a good repertoire of tunes in your head, you can say, ooh, save that one for later. Let's try this one. Because they're there to have a good time. So help them help you have a good time.
That's great advice, Lisa. I love it. Now, one of the things that's happened to me on the dance floor is you have, with English country dances, you have specific tunes. And you have a specific tune in mind. You're thinking, oh, we need something that picks people up right about here. And then all of a sudden the band plays it completely different than you expected them to play it. Do you have any advice for those of us that are newer callers looking for ways to deal with the band and that sort of thing?
Well, it's really about communication. If it's really throwing you a curveball, wait till the break, but then have that conversation and say, hey, could I talk to you about how that dance went? I was expecting this. What did you need me to say to you? And maybe they're going to say, but we always play it that way. I have a great example of that. Sapphire C. I love now to see what tempo is Sapphire C going to be. For you Contra dancers, Sapphire C is this beautiful dance written by Christine Robb. In fact, I know George Marshall has actually called it a Contra dance in disguise. And it's got that beautiful dolphin hay in it. And Anna Patton loves to play it slowly. Other musicians play it more quickly. And I realized as a dancer, I can adjust. It is such a beautiful tune. The choreography is so beautiful, it probably doesn't matter. And I remember the band started in and it was really slow and I immediately went, ugh. And then I went, wait a minute, this has become spacious. And Christine is always lovely if there's a little bit of tension about how fast. Christine's lovely and said, band choice. Band's choice. Even if she's not calling, people will also always go to her in the audience and say, Christine, what's the tempo supposed to be? The caller's hoping it'll be faster. The band's choice. And that to me is the beauty of beautiful choreography. Does that answer your question, Darlene?
It does. That's a great answer.
Well, and then there's a corollary. On your next dance, check in with them. So for this one, I need this. What do you think that tempo would sound like? Or how do you play that? And be ready to change it if necessary.
Cool. Okay, thanks. Are we ready to move on to thing 3? Okay, and I have a question that goes along with this. Effective teaching, think like a dancer, which I love. I know you conduct a lot of callers workshops and that you have a mantra that I've heard about. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, you just posted it. Think like a dancer. Think like a dancer. The problem with being a caller is we know too much. And you forget what it's like to be on the floor, and especially if you're newer to dancing, you don't know everything. So you need really good, concise language, and language is really key. So you want to tailor your language so it becomes a command and not a lengthy story. One of my pet peeves, once I became aware of this, is often callers use going to. You're going to ladies' chain. No, the command is chain, ladies' chain. You're going to circle left, because what does that do to you physically as a dancer? You're going to makes you stop. Oh, but there's an implied but, and then it doesn't happen. So lengthy teaching might be, ladies or robins, give right hands in the middle and you're about to pull by into a chain. Oh, that's just way too long. What's the command? Chain across. So that's it. You really want to make it concise and be careful about that. Getting rid of going to is hard because, in my opinion, I think it's one of those little neurological things that buys you 3 seconds. Like, you say you're going to while your brain's going, what is it, what is it, what is it? Oh, right, chain, that's the next command. So a good way to do this is actually to write out your walkthroughs. And that's something, if you ever want to learn how to call, I recommend Bob Isaac's calling classes, which he often does up in Greenfield, Mass, or down in the Princeton, Philly area. And he meets with a group maybe every 2 weeks, and he has you write out your walkthroughs. That is great advice, because then you get to see how many words you're using. And of course, my favorite thing is, be curious about why dancers do the things they do. Sometimes it's the choreography. So you're watching the dance, maybe it's a newer dance to you, and you can tell something's weird. Sometimes it's just a glitch in the choreography. The best thing you can do is ask your friends at the break, hey, you know that new dance I called? Was there something weird about it? Oh, no, it was fine. It was just our line. Oh. Or, yeah, it just didn't feel weird. We kept wanting to do this other figure. Excellent. Dancers are a great resource for you as a teacher. But I just love figuring out, why did they do that? Because it's usually something I said. Well, it's always something I said, right? And what can I say that will help guide them into the real move? Here's something, for example, I love this. For example, you have the move swing, and you go into something unexpected like pass the ocean. The flow isn't there. You have to know that you're going to do that. So you call that the first 3 times, and then you stop calling, and they don't do it. They do something else. And you think, oh, well, that's interesting. So don't blame them. Figure out, why did they stop doing that pass the ocean? And usually it's because the choreography does not tell them, oh, it's obvious the next move is a pass the ocean. You have to tell them. And one of the best ways is, instead of constantly calling it, create a little audio phrase in their head. So eventually they're just going to hear that. And it might just be, make that wave, make that wave, make that wave. And then you pull back, and they don't know it, but they're hearing you kind of singing, make that wave. And that's a great way just to get that little something in their head. And sometimes it's obviously a communication disconnect. Basically, you made a mistake, or you've always taught it this way and they're not getting it. So are you going to blame them? It's very tempting. Or are you going to be curious about how to guide them? That, to me, is the secret of a good caller. You're curious. I love this. To me, it's a puzzle. And sometimes I'll call something and it's a new dance, I'll teach it. And I can tell, oops, well, a little rough out there, but while the dance is going on, I can correct it with my cueing, my prompting. And the great thing is the dancers have no idea. They thought it was their mistake, but because I was able to fix it, and I'm making notes, teach it this way. Oh, it's so great. I love that. I love that. And I would say the biggest challenge is probably rowdy crowds. So for you, you've got to set the intention, which is, why are they here? They're here to have a good time. They're not here so that I can tell them how to do it right. So in other words, seek a positive solution. Simplify your program and sell it. I think we've all been there. And again, for me, the power of language is just so important. One of my favorite exercises in a callers class is to instruct the callers who are dancers to do exactly what the caller says, which is really tough because the dancers already know. And I'm like, nope, do exactly what they say. And the example might be, go down the hall and back up. And what do people do? They literally back up. And the caller's like, what? And the dancers say, well, that's what you told us to do. That's the power of language. I hope it makes you laugh. I find it endlessly fascinating. Because again, you got to think like a dancer. I heard you say, back up. And I really like language as it applies to learning styles. And I encourage any caller to do research. Read Howard Gardner about learning styles. And there are 4 big ones for Contra dancers. Visual, the people who are cueing off other dancers or places in the hall. Kinesthetic, the people who just get it because they're moving it. They get it once in their body and they've got it. Spatial, oh, engineers, do I love you? If I give you a fraction, you know exactly where that is, and I count on that. And auditory is really fascinating. So here's an example that's teaching to 2 styles. Circle left 3 places, 3/4, until you can face your partner along the line. So the 3/4 was for the spatial, and face your partner along the line, that is for those visual people. Oh, this is where I'm supposed to end up. And that's a great thing. Auditory is really fascinating to me. I finally had somebody in one of my classes who was auditory, and she explained it to me. And she said she wants consistent verbal phrases that have kind of a rhythm to them. So for a while, there was some calling going on, for example, that would be like, do-si-do, go once and a half. Personally, I found that very difficult because as an experienced dancer, I stopped listening to you after you said do-si-do once because there was that pause before the half. So instead, it's do-si-do, go once and a half so that you have this nice rhythm. And that's the same thing as in that other example I gave you about make that wave. It's got a little rhythm to it that the dancers can then incorporate.
So, Lisa, we're going to bring up a question.
Yay!
We got
Yes,
several
we
of them going.
All right, we have Anna Rain on the line. Anna, hi.
Anna Rain!
Can she turn on? Uh-oh. Anna, are you there?
Okay, I can.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Unmuted.
There we go.
Okay, I like that though. That was very useful. Okay, hi Lisa. I told Darlene and Lindsay that I'm such a fangirl. I'll go, oh, Lisa Greenleaf, I think she's so great. She's so wonderful. So here's my question. What is, I gave them the superlative, but I'll give you any kind, a very challenging critique that you received in the moment, and how did you manage it?
Anna, that is a great question. I get asked that all the time.
Oh,
So much so.
I'm not even original.
Oh no, but you're timely. That's good for a caller, you're timely. It's asked so much that I now include it in my intensive callers workshops as part of a segment of dealing with difficult situations.
Bring it on.
Because role play is really key, and also your peer buddies are really important. Talk to people. This happened to me. What do you think? How would you handle this? In the most extreme cases, I think there's anger on the part of the other person, and they're giving you clues that they are just giving you anger. And the clues are physical. If their hands are on their hips, if they're leaning, if they look threatening, if you feel as though, whoa, this is just a comment, pay attention to that. But also in their language. For example, you stopped calling and we didn't know what to do, and you were just up here, and I'm really disappointed in you, and that's unacceptable. Has that ever happened to you? That's happened to me about 3 times. I can remember them all. Yeah. So do you see what's happening? First of all, the body language, that's key. That's your first indicator. Okay, time to set a boundary. The second one is the language, you. Does every you feel like a hot poker? If that's the case, that person is speaking from anger, and most likely you're not going to really be able to diffuse them. So in that case, I do, and Anna, this came from many callers' role play workshops. And here's what I came up with, and you can have any kind of variation. There are 4 parts to this. Mm-hmm. Got it, thanks. Walk away. So the 4 parts are the hand, because that's setting a visual. This is for somebody who's really, really angry at you. The second one is key for any kind of critique, eye contact. Maintain that eye contact, because that shows them, I'm listening to you, I'm right on your level, and then got it, I heard it, and then walk away. And if they diffuse their anger on their own later and come talk to you, then you can have a reasonable conversation. The second one is, but also, let me give you another example of that, which isn't really out of anger, but just sort of, they want your attention. It's when you're calling in between dances and they come up to you. Darlene's nodding her head. That's up to you to set the boundary. So you can say things, if it's somebody who is giving you a good piece of information or they want information, just say, talk to me at the break. I learned that from Linda Leslie, the late Linda Leslie. If it's somebody who's really just trying to give you a lot of stuff, then what you say is, I can't talk right now. And if you feel like it, you can say, I'm working with the band, I can't talk right now. Because that is your time, you are actually working. You don't always have to use the hand, but I love the hand.
It's a good hand.
But again, the eye contact is really key. And in other cases where people are just frustrated, I actually always learn a lot from them, and I try to mirror back their concerns. So again, the key is in the language. So you stopped calling, and we couldn't figure out where we were. We did this, we did that, and you hear the difference in the language? We, yes. As opposed to you. Mm-hmm. And so they're talking about their own experience. That tells me, oh, goody, we can have a conversation. The first thing I do is mirror it back. And I don't even have to say, you needed me to call. I can say, so you needed more calling. And then you can have, yeah, we just need it. And I'm, oh,
okay.
Great, thank you. Uh-huh. Walk away.
I like walk away.
Yeah, well, you don't have to stay there and take care of their emotions. But you do have to acknowledge, and again, the eye contact is really key. But you can also educate them whenever, for example, I love calling squares, and it's so frustrating when people come up afterwards and they're frustrated, we couldn't hear you. And I'm like, okay, got it. Next time, and it's not just me, with any caller, next time, wave your hands or send a runner, because you shouldn't miss the square because you can't hear it. Mm-hmm. I will deal with it. And I've done that. I've been calling, the music's going on, and I'm like, hold on a minute, the music's still going. Can you guys hear me in the back? The music's still going. No, you don't have to break everything down, but you're acknowledging, well, we're going to make it right for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can educate them. Here's what you do next time.
Oh, I like that. I like the education. That's nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. And I'd love to talk with you about it anytime.
Anytime. Let's have a 4-hour date.
Can we listen in?
Thank you.
Can we eavesdrop in? I'll have you two on just chatting. People can join in.
Well, get a group of people. I mean, that's to me is kind of the point. I've learned a lot because colleagues have come up to me and said, wow, I just had this really weird thing happen. And, you know, we have a chat with other callers about, oh, that wasn't my experience, or, oh, I agree with you, that was nasty. What do you think you could have said, you know, to diffuse this person? That kind of thing.
I think we need to take your callers workshop.
You know, and that brings up another point that I always like to say to newer callers, and that is find a peer buddy. Find a peer buddy, somebody who's at your level, whom you trust, and talk with them. Get feedback from each other. And I love it when people who are my students become my peer buddies. That to me is just like the best thing. And we can talk, you know, I can go up to them and say, I'm trying out this new dance. Can you help me out? So yeah, peer buddies are just the best thing.
That sounds great. We've got a couple more questions we're going to put in.
We do. Okay, so Lynn Feynman asked, what do you think about demos when words or figures are not coming up easy? Blah, like that, when you can't describe a figure very well with words. What do you feel about doing demos?
I think demos are great, and there's a good way to do them and a not so effective way to do them. If you're high up on a stage, you have to think about how am I going to do this? If it's really just a basic figure, let's say you have that dolphin hay, but you know you've got 4 dancers down there. Hopefully you can plan ahead. I mean, with the dolphin hay, that's a different kind of figure. So you grab people at the break and say, hey, would you 4 be willing to be in a demo? And then you call them up, because then you can narrate it as it's going on and you don't have to come down off the stage. But I also don't have any problem coming down off the stage to demo something. But if it's really something I can get 2 people to do down on the floor, I'd much rather do that. That saves time and it doesn't break up the rhythm of the evening.
Very cool.
Use them judiciously. Use them judiciously. Hopefully your words won't fail. But yeah, dolphin hay, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, and then one more question. This is from Caro Talley. Okay, words are just not happening tonight. I don't know what to say. All right, so Carol Talley asks, how is it that so much glee comes from you on a dance floor or off the dance floor?
Well, it's why we all dance. I'll tell you, Carol, thank you. That is such a great question. I feel so fortunate. Look where I am right now. I'm in the Scout House. But as a caller, for example, the joy I feel on stage, oh my gosh, the bands I work with are so wonderful. And yeah, dancers often ask me, don't you wish you were dancing? Yeah, and I do dance. And I think it's very important for callers to dance. But what the dancers aren't getting is standing 3 feet away from that music. And if you're into the music as much as I am, watching them build the tune, watching Kate Barnes throw something funny in there, or anybody else, and reacting with them, oh my gosh, I love that. So you get the energy from the band, and then on the dance floor, you get the energy coming from the stage. I mean, you're just being slapped around by endorphins. It's great. Yeah, I mean, as you can tell, I'm a pretty animated person, so dancing, holy cow, it's just the best. So I will say, actually, this is important. I did learn early on. I remember I went to a dance and I just was feeling out of it. And one of my good friends saved me by saying, you don't look happy to be here. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love dancing. What am I doing? And I had a little talk with myself and I said, okay, you do one more dance. And if you can't get out of this funk, you leave, because that's not dancing. And that got me out of it. And maybe there was another time where I realized, I think I just need to go sit down for a while. So be present. It's, you know, you got to be happy when you're this present.
Thank you.
Well, I think with that note, And there were a couple other questions. We will get to them in the after talk or at the end of this talk. We're going to move on to thing 4. It's spreading, Lindsay. Thing 4 is curiosity and wonder.
Ooh. So both English and Contra are constantly changing due to both cultural and creative forces. So we have a pop quiz for you. Think about your own history and what has changed, and answer this question in the chat box. There's a reason I'm asking. What were your first dance shoes? For me, they were those black cotton Chinese Mary Janes with the hard red rubber sole. No support, but boy, could you swing in them. They were awful for English. Took me a long time to find the right shoes for English, but I don't wear those anymore. I don't think any dancer wears those anymore because times have changed. Chinese slippers, look at all of you. Oh yeah, that's great. It's a great question. I mean, that's a whole PhD thesis right there, if anybody still has them. I would love to read that thesis. And I'm sure depending on where you were in the country, the shoes were different based on what was the style. So if you think about English and Contra dancing, a lot has changed besides the shoes. Think about balances. When I started in Chicago, you balanced on the left foot with a step swing. But in New England, except for New Hampshire, they balanced on the right foot. So after we all left grad school and started moving around, guess what happened on a balance? Kaboom! And thus was born the forward and back balance. Because people have been, and in England, they still do the step swing balance on the right foot. They step right and swing. But I think that's fascinating. Somebody asked me, how did this happen that we're balancing forward and back? And I thought, it's gotta be because of this which foot do you start on problem. Stars are different around the country in Contra dancing. There's the pack saddle, which is the wrist grip, coming from modern Western square dancing. Right and left through, do you give hands or not? And what's interesting is that is changing. In cold New England originally, except for Maine, we did not give hands on a right and left through. But now people are because it's friendlier. So as a caller, it's important. If you think this dance goes better giving hands on the right and left through, just instruct the dancers to do that. There are certain cases where I think that is actually true. And we've also got this addition of new figures. One thing I didn't mention is I also dance modern Western square dancing, which I love because it's all patterns. And we've certainly been absorbing a lot of figures past the ocean. When I first started calling Contras and came across this move past the ocean, I think it was Tom Hines who may have written one of the first Contras. I could not get past the ocean to fit in the rhythm of cueing. So I said, pass through to a wave. But that's actually not the name of the figure. And square dancers told me that. So now I say, pass the ocean. And then maybe while the dance is going, I might say, pass through to a wave because it cues more easily than that. Figures like tag the line or, box circulate. Again, I used to call it rotate the wave until square dancers said, why don't you call it what it is? It's called a box circulate. It's like, oh, okay. And I'm really grateful for that as somebody who does a lot of research on older squares. I can't figure out what some of these figures are.
Lisa, could you describe a couple of these figures for the English country dancers out here? Just in a little tiny nutshell.
Sure, a pass through to a wave is just what it sounds like. You're facing another couple across. You start a pass through and the gent or person on the left goes all the way over and the person on the right just catches the other person and you hinge into a wave across the set. And a box circulate is you're all in waves at the sides, some facing in, some facing out. In your little group of four, you drop hands and progress to the next place in your own group of four. Yeah, how do you describe that? So we've all been working on that one still.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, that's a great question. And of course from English, there's the hey. I actually remember when hey came in. Ted Sinella had to demonstrate it. I already knew what it was, although a hey for four is not a common thing in English, but you know, it was easy enough for me to get the concept. But I remember that here in the Scout House, Ted getting down and demonstrating this brand new figure. And of course, the gypsy, AKA the right shoulder round, came in. A lot of the figures themselves have now even changed. If you look at, I love this, Mad Robin. Oh my gosh, I remember the original Mad Robin. For you Contra dancers, that's the name of the dance. And if you imagine the ones are below the twos, and the women are all on one side, the gents are all on the other, and the ones have to do a Mad Robin while the twos stand still, which is not what Contra dancers do. When I first started doing it, it was taught that the first lady would go up the center, the first gent would go up the outside, and then she would cast down, turning her back on her partner quickly, and then go down. But I remember, folks, pheromones took over in Boston. And even though we were taught, and it's actually a little flirtatious move to do that quick little cast and then catch your partner's eye, but oh, I remember suddenly we were doing this and zzz, I am not gonna stop looking at you. And then that caught on, and that became what we do in Contra dancing, which is technically a double Mad Robin, but nobody has to call that anymore. I just think that's a hoot. Also, if you've been lucky enough to travel around the country, you'll notice there are variations, especially in English dancing. I love this too. So many of you are now familiar with this, but we didn't always hear in my little village. What that means is, hey, Bostonites, I know you do Bella Mira this way, but in my little village, we do it this way, and that's the way I'm gonna teach it. I love that. And an example of that would be roundabout our coal fire. I remember when that came in, it's a slip jig, and Helena had to teach us how to set in slip jig. And then I was doing it with a Philadelphia crowd. They didn't do that. They just did this little nice forward and back. And I remember saying, what's this? And they said, oh, we just decided to do it that way. I think it's great. I do. I think it's great. Oh yeah, and one last thing. In Contra, I find this fascinating. If you look at older videos of Contra dances from the 70s and 80s, a do-si-do was only once around. This once and a half business wasn't there. And if you look at the videos, you can see why. First of all, the music was very up and down, and it was not fast. And they didn't twirl, but they just went like this and they took up the music. Maybe there were a few twirls. What happened? The music got fast. And suddenly going once around didn't cut it. You had too much energy. So once and a half is great, especially if you're twirling around. So some of you got the test materials early, so hopefully you'll know how to answer this question. In the country today, there are 3 ways people promenade. And I find it fascinating. As a caller, it's actually useful to know how people promenade because it may affect your choreography. So in New England, it's the same position as a lady's chain for the person on the right hand's behind. So that's why it's called a chicken wing, because if your hall is crowded, that right elbow is kind of a pain. And I will instruct people in New England, would you please promenade this way, which is Varsouvienne, which is the person on the right is like holding a waiter's tray, and the person on the left steps behind them and puts the hand there. Varsouvienne, by the way, comes from the word Warsaw. Don't you love that little piece of international dance? And then skater's position is both hands are in front, joined. So, pop quiz. How does your community promenade? And let me tell you, it is muscle memory. So when I go out to the West Coast, which is mostly skaters, I end up doing all this fancy semaphore because I can't remember what part of the country I'm in. And that's part of the fun to me. And that's also why it's really important as a caller that you get info about the customs of your dance community. For example, with squares, I get a lot of, we don't do squares. I try to negotiate. Have you done my squares? Could I call one as a test? And I'll back off if they really don't want to, but I really try to let them know, oh no, I only call good squares. And the only time I have refused anything is when I was asked to use the terms lead and follow as role definers, because Contra is neither lead nor follow. You're both following the caller. And here's my syntactical test for that. So you have a chain into a circle to the right. If you were using gendered terminology, ladies chain, and then the ladies would be leading the gent into the circle to the right. But if you use lead and follow, our followers chain across, lead your leader in a circle to the right, leaders follow your follower in that circle to the right, forget it. So, yeah, that's about it. All right, and the music has changed. The music is now faster, thank you. Yeah, the music's faster. And we've even gotten into techno contras. And I actually called some of the first alternative music, not techno. I actually took music with a friend of mine and we edited it for rock and roll, electronic Irish. We edited it for dancing. And then I taped the calls over it. What a blast. Thoroughly, thoroughly love that. And now my favorite is live techno, where the band has laid down some electronic tracks and they're playing traditional instruments over that. A blast. As long as it's danceable.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love all that stuff. Okay, let's go into thing 5. And I know there have been some questions, but just stick around for the after talk because you know we'll get to them there if we don't have time at the end. So, thing 5, enjoy the evolution.
Yeah, boy, if you've been dancing the last 10 years, you know things are changing. So this is a corollary to what we've been talking about. And it's important to stay current. And if you feel yourself resisting that change, that dancers in your community are wanting a bigger change, for example, around gypsy, right shoulder round, or roll terms, it's a great opportunity for you to dig deeper and figure out, oh, what is it? Is it just because I hate change? Then I encourage you, talk to people. I mean, how do you adapt to all these new changes? I get asked that all the time. And it really was because I talked to the people who wanted to make the change. It took a long time, but I was like, okay. And then plus, heck, I wanted to get hired. So they'd say, well, you use larks and ravens back then. And I said, sure. And how I do it is I have stickies. Some callers actually rewrite everything, or if you're really good, you can use a database and reprogram it. I just use stickies, larks, ravens. And I'm happy to say I prefer robins, larks and robins, and that's a whole other story about how we came up with that one. But when that discussion was going on, especially around right shoulder round gypsy, I just thought it was really sad that we were having to discuss so vehemently and we weren't getting to a solution, but we did. We finally got to a solution. And actually it was kind of fun for us callers to try different things. I loved spiral until the engineer said, Lisa, it's not a spiral. It's like, ah, darn, I liked that one. One of my favorites was, I think at Youth Dance Weekend, they came up with Darcy, as in Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. But I said it once and somebody thought I'd said hussy. Now that doesn't work. I didn't like it when you called us hussies. And I thought, what? Oh, you mean Darcy. I love orbit, but we already have a figure called orbit. So right shoulder round. As for English, you're on your own. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I will tell you, though, that when I was in England calling last year, I talked to the Contra callers there, and they said, oh, we have made a decision, and we are going to use gypsy because we did talk to the Roma, and they said that they are not involved in our dancing, and we are using that term in a way that has really nothing to do with us. So while I was in England, I used gypsy, and I have to tell you, that felt strange to me to call gypsy. So you can adapt to the change. And I I don't feel any political pull on it either way. I just want people to have a good time without feeling uncomfortable. So I absolutely do understand the roll term issue. And if you're having trouble with that, just keep talking to people. Yeah, and I mean, the real thing is you don't want to feel left out. It's moving on without you. So ask people about those ideas. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, when I was program director for American Week, and we were switching over to Larks and Robins, I had a theme for the week, and here's what it was. Exciting experimentation, thoughtful evaluation, and respectful discussion. And you can have a great time with that if that's your philosophy. And we did have a great time.
That's wonderful. We are going to have one more question. At least
Okay.
one more. Thank you.
Linda, I have you on board. Let me see if I can allow you to start the video. Yes, here we go. All right, Linda, are you able to start your video?
Yes, and I even got the verbal going here.
Yay!
As
Hey,
it were. Yay! Hey, Lisa. All right, my question is your current thoughts on the future of contra dance, maybe of dancing in general. It's evolving very rapidly, and the pandemic world certainly is going to change things additionally. So where's your thinking at this point?
Well, actually, my thinking is about the transition out of the pandemic. I mean, contra dancing, English dancing, they are going to survive. The Zoom events are fabulous. I know they don't feel like the dancing we're used to, but they're keeping us connected. They're keeping the language in our head. I think that's so important. They're keeping the musicians occupied. And the transition has two really important things. I think it's going to be an opportunity for dance organizers to examine and reshape the vision of their events. Key time. What do you want your dance to be? People are already getting used to writing behavior policies. Well, think about your vision statement. What do you want your vision to be? And along with that, and this is really important, we know we're not going to get like a fixed date of all dancing will resume on June 1st. Oh boy, do I wish that were true, but it's not going to happen, which means that it's important for all of us to respect that everyone has a different threshold of safety and comfort. And your community might start dances, but not everybody will feel comfortable going. So I encourage your communities to figure out, how can we keep everybody included? Do we start a recording half an hour beforehand and have people talk to each other via Zoom and say, hi, I'm here, I'm thinking about you? Do you have outreach officers who will help everybody still feel included? Because that's my biggest worry, is that people will feel excluded because they're not ready to dance, but everybody else is. And beyond that, I think we're going to see a lot more Larks and Robins dances, fine with me. If you don't like that, start a dance and call it old traditional dancing and go for it.
All right, thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you, Lisa. This has been so interesting, and the hour has just flown by. I do want to let people know, some of you were asking for that little sign with the last thing that we posted. We're going to put that in our Dropbox. We now have a 5 Things Dropbox, and we are using it for each guest, the chat, because some of you can't download the chat, so you can go there and pull up the chat and get the reference notes that people have posted or we've posted there, and we'll put little pictures or other things that people are looking to get a hold of. So this week it will be that photo of your little sign, so at the end there. So again, thank you, Lisa, for being with us. It's been great, and I'm really looking forward to the after talk. They are going to be posting the link for that, and there are definitely questions that we didn't get to yet that are going to be put there. I have to ask you, what's your favorite dance? Everyone wants to know.
Well, gee, Darlene, English or Contra? Oh, we don't have time. Let me put it this way. I have favorites. You know, you hear that you think you're exhausted, you're sitting on the sideline and they suddenly say, take your partner for Mary Kay. Suddenly you have energy and you get up and you dance. At that moment, that's where you are. So a lot of them. It depends on the band and the
Yeah.
partner.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And are you a tea drinker?
I am Assam with milk. Good malty Assam with milk, please. Thank you.
I agree. That's a great tea. Absolutely. And before we get into the other announcements I'm going to make, I just want to give you all a heads up. It's not yet ready. It's going to be on sale eventually, early notice. On November 7th, we're going to be hosting a workshop with Rebecca King, which is going to be music for dancers. And why I'm bringing it up now is we are going to have a follow-on workshop after that. And these are just one-day workshops, an hour, hour and a half long. Following that, we are going to have a workshop with Lisa Greenleaf working with musicians. So keep an eye open for that. Probably November, but let's see what happens. You will know it. Sign up for our MailChimp emails and check our Facebook page and you'll know. So now let me get into the thank yous. Thank you, Lisa Greenleaf. It's been great. I'm looking forward to the after talk. I know it's going to be fun. Our 5 Things team, Lindsay Verbal in the background, Renee Turner on Zoom, Larry Hansen on Facebook, along with our helpers, Reed Wilson, Kara King, and Linda Nelson. I could not do this without you all. Colin Yoon, he corrected me. He made sure I'm to tell you he maintains an accessible index of all our web chats on his website. And they're all in one place for everyone to access. It's being posted now, so please go and check out the list of now 30 plus this one soon, folks who have been on over the last 6 months. A big thank you to the folks who have been donating to our group. It really helps. We do have expenses with having these larger format seminars and webinars and meetings, so thank you, thank you. The After Talk link is posted. Let me just tell you quickly what's coming up, and it's going to be posted in the web chat boxes. Coming up next week, no 5 Things show next week. We are not going to be hosting a show on September 29th. It's the presidential debate. Or on November 3rd, the presidential election. We really feel folks will be more focused on those 2 important events. If you really miss us, you can watch an old episode. That's what I did when Karen Axelrod wasn't on one week, and it was kind of fun to see what had come from the past and how things had changed. Jean Morrow will be rescheduled to October 13th. Coming next on Tuesday, October 6th. Can you believe it's October already? We have a doubleheader, Rachel Bell and Susan Kevra. First time we're doing 2 people. I'm really excited. So if you know them, you'll know why I'm excited. There's a little note in the chat box about who and what they are if you don't know them. This Saturday, September 26th, Hunt the Squirrel and Chase the Lady dance lecture with Susan DeGuardiola. If you've been to any of her talks, they usually sell out. She's lots of fun and very interesting. And I bet a lot of you have done the dance Hunt the Squirrel. I've done at least 2 variations. I'm really looking forward to finding out more. And then coming up in 2 weeks on October 3rd, we have our Yoga for Dancers class with Anna Rain on Saturday. So we're looking forward to that. So this Saturday, Susan DeGuardiola. The following Saturday, Anna Rain. We hope you join us. Join us always on Thursdays for tea time at 5 p.m. It's really just a time to have a friendly chit chat about anything you want to talk about. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun people in there every week. So join us. Go to the Historical Tea and Dance Society Friends page or send us an email. Go to the Friends page around 4:30 on Thursday Pacific time. You'll see a link. Donations, as we're signing out here, donations. Concord Scout House. Support the Concord Scout House. We want it to be here when this is all past, and we want to be dancing there again. The beautiful exit music is Turlotte by, let's see, Keith Murphy. and Black Rock by Becky Tracy. It's a medley. It's on the CD Golden, and it's available by contacting Becky Tracy. I don't have another aspect of how to get that, but we're posting it in the chat. So we'll see you all in 2 minutes. Thank you. Good night.